we're
about ready to start.
We're deciding on our opening hands. It looks like here.
No, they look like they're held up. Okay, so both players are
happy. Ooh, no green.
Yeah, this deck list is 2 forest, 2 island, 8 fetches, 8 dual lands.
Okay, he does have a one swap Heath in his hand.
Yeah. Although it's curious that he wouldn't lead with it because he has solid Pride Mage in his hand, so he must have something else going on.
Well, I do see an Unstable Mutation hiding out there. I also do see a Spectral Flight. He could have a Spell Pierce lurking in his hand that we don't know about.
Sure, that's fair.
We're going to see a Ponder start the show.
And the Ponder resolves. We're looking at, I believe it's Red Pact, Flooded Strand, Emrakul.
You have it correct, sir.
Hard to see from Jones's hand here. He's keeping it pretty close. All right, we're going to shuffle. So if you're on Lutzi's side of this, like, do you just want to fire off a Pierce on the cantrips? I guess he doesn't know what he's playing against, right? So that.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely some like merit to doing that, but at the same time, like, you don't want to just throw those away on Ponder or what have you.
So he just drew another fetch land. So if he had led with his fetches, he could have cast a Pride Mage. I'm not sure if he necessarily wants to do that right now, but. Another Ponder.
Another Ponder, which he's perfectly fine letting go.
So how much damage does Pride Mage mutation, like, how fast does that kill?
So it's a 2/2, becomes a 5/5, and then exalted as a 6/6. So 6/5/4 on the way down. 6/5/4.
11, 15, 18. So 4 turns, assuming that he fetches twice or uses a Force Will or something like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And he also has a Spectral Flight lurking in his hand as well. So, I mean, then it just gets out of control.
We're going to saddle up and ride soon.
Yeah.
I can't wait.
So we're going to sack that Windswept Heath at the end step, putting Brenden down to 19 as well.
Running a Tropical Island. And I believe this is the turn that the other shoe will drop.
Yes.
Oh no, we're probably 2 turns away, because this is probably going to be Pride Mage or some threat card this turn, and then just drew a Daze.
Yeah, I assume he's going to search for a Tundra here, cast the Pride Mage, leave the island up to be Wasteland proof, and then be able to cast Spell Pierce and Daze.
Oh, we're getting a Savannah? Okay.
I'm prepared to be wrong.
So, I mean, at this point, it's sort of arbitrary what lands he's getting, right? I mean, I think you want to get more blue lands, all other things being equal, because you have like Spectral Flight plus Unstable Mutation plus Spell Pierce. Like in theory, you could have use for 3 blue mana.
Yeah. We're gonna see a Brainstorm in response.
So yeah, Brenden is not using his. I actually like the way that he's playing this. He's not using his Pierces or his Dazes on any of the cantrips. He's just gonna wait to fight over
the relevant stuff.
Yeah.
Now the interesting thing there is that, you know, it makes sense, but it can also get him into trouble too, because the deck that Bryan is playing does have 4 Ancient Tombs, it does have 2 City of Traders, and it does have 4 Grim Monoliths. So
yeah, the Monolith is the big thing where there's a risk of him just going way over the top.
Yes.
All right, so we got to counter this, right? So we're gonna Pierce this and leave Daze.
Surprised that we didn't Daze that one.
Yeah, I would have dazed. Although I guess the argument is like his blue mana is taxed because he wants to be casting his pump spells.
Sure.
So like if he's gonna cast 2 pump spells this turn, then you'd rather have the Daze that can still work as opposed to the Pierce.
We're gonna see an Unstable Mutation.
It's a pants party.
We got a reader.
You're being invited to the pants party. I would have sprung for the Arabian Nights ones, I think.
You were paid out?
Yeah.
You spent the money?
Yeah, I would have spent the $2 on the playset or whatever.
Now it's actually a pants party. Like before, it was like, what's like the lower form of a party? Like a gathering?
Yeah. So that's a 9-ball.
That's a fast clock.
Yeah, I mean, if he's
Actually.
got another pair of pants, it's just dead. That's just it. It's a combo deck.
It is combo deck. It is a combo deck. I can't argue that. So we're gonna see another cantrip effect, Brainstorm.
Yeah.
And he does have more pants.
Right. We're not done.
Yeah.
And we don't have a third land, I think, on Jones' side of the table.
Yeah, that's what it looks like. All this cantripping, brainstorming, all that stuff wasn't able to find him the mana to be able to basically get his deck working.
Yeah. I mean, he did shuffle away a Strand on his first ponder, but I have no idea like what the quality of those 3 cards were against what his hand was. So
Yeah.
still could have been correct, but. And we're done.
That's it. All it takes is a Kusali Pride Mage and 2 unstable mutations to get
Yeah.
the opponent to concede.
Yeah, metagame madness.
Game.
You see that? You see that? I don't know what the language was, but there was some comment from Jones and then a little smirk from Lutzi. So.
It's not his first time. It's not his first time. That's for sure.
Can't you play an honest game like show and telling Emrakul into play? Can't you just try to play Magic?
Yeah. 10 spells and a tendrils on turn 2.
Yeah, come on. Play an honest game of Legacy. Why don't you?
Belcher plus activate on turn 1. I don't know.
Just like
What do you think
why
you're doing here?
You gotta throw dirt in my eye on camera like that.
So looking at Bryan Jones's list, my first tip outside of sideboarding would be to draw more than 2 lands. But outside of that, the fire
He drew a
spouts.
monolith. He drew other mana.
That's not a land. I said more than 2 lands.
I mean, he drew mana sources, man.
My point still remains. We're going to likely see Red Elemental Blast, hopefully countering Unstable Mutation
Yeah.
for something that you did not expect to see today on our broadcast. And he also has 3. He has 3 Red Elemental Blasts and he has 3 Fire Spouts. Fire Spout, again, could potentially come in, but there is also the weakness that because he doesn't have a green source of mana in his deck, he will not be able to play the flying half of it for Avian Mimeomancer and Birds of Paradise.
What I actually hope happens is that Unstable Mutation is red blasted after it's applied some -1/-1 counters to a guy. And the guy dies.
Oh.
That would be a dream state for me.
We'll see what we can do.
Taking me back to Eugene Harvey's basement in 1995, where that stuff that was a matter of course.
A dark and lonely place.
Just the way the games got played.
That's fair.
Yep.
Honest games.
Unstable
among
Mutation
friends.
on my bird and just take it for 6 over 3 turns.
So what are we
yeah.
looking at for Brenden?
I mean, we got 2 copies of Gadok Teague. They're okay. They're not even great. They're, I guess. No, they're not. I mean, they shut off. They actually prevent Hive-Mind from resolving.
And they also do shut off Force of Will, which I believe Bryan is likely to keep in. But
Yeah, but he's got his own Force of Wills too, so it's not even like pure upside.
sure.
And he's got a copy of Surgical Extraction, which is fine, but I'm not even sure what he really want to cut. I mean, everything is like a threat card, a counter spell, or a creature pump spell. They all seem fine. I kind of wish if I was playing Lutzi's deck that I had Meddling Mages in the sideboard, because they seem pretty custom built for what's going on here.
Sure. Stop opponent from doing something. Give you a
Right.
target for the enchant creatures.
Yeah.
Give you the business.
Yeah.
While I'm stopping you from comboing off.
Yeah.
I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Like that game, Bryan Jones didn't draw much mana, so I don't feel like it's an accurate representation. But at the same time, Brendan's deck, if you do stumble or you do falter while you're pondering around looking for a combo, he can just kill you. Like it was just a 2-turn clock to kill him.
Yep.
So it doesn't take him long.
How many lands does Jones have? Is it 18? I mean, it's not a ton.
11, 12, 13, 19.
19.
19. He has 19 lands and 6 of them are double lands, 4 Ancient Tombs and 2 City of Traders.
Yeah.
So he definitely doesn't have a ton of lands, but I mean, it's also not the kind of deck that really wants a ton of lands. But
Right.
at the same time, what happened last game is not completely out of the question.
Looks like they're both taking a mulligan.
Down to 6 we go.
Lutzi's deck probably mulligans reasonably well because it doesn't. I mean, he has cards like threat cards like Geist specifically that just can do all the heavy lifting.
For sure.
Yeah, he's not depending on like this density of creatures to be attacking.
Like and in this particular matchup, like I think a mulligan favors Lutzi a lot more because he only needs 1 threat.
Right.
To be like pushed through. Like he can mulligan pretty simply into a hand that has like 2 lands, a Noble Hierarch, a Death Saint Trap, then like a Daze or a Spell Pierce. and that's a very good hand in this matchup. While Bryan Jones is kind of, looking for ponders and the pieces of my combo, and then like the counter spells to protect my combo. So
I'm curious. Do you think the the 3 unstable mutation, 2 spectral flight split is the result of rigorous testing, or do you think that's sort of like whatever?
Hard to say. Hard to say. I don't want to. I don't want to speak for one man, but it's just difficult to say if 3-2 is right, or 4 mutations, 1 flight, or 4 flights, 1 mutation. But I think the mutation is probably the better of the 2 cards.
It is cheaper,
and that always factors into it.
All right, so Jones is going to 5 here. Looks like we're looking at a hand of a Pride Mage, a Force of Will, a Geistesane Draft, and at least 2 lands, I think, on Lutzi's side. Very good hand.
Okay.
Some beaters, some disruption. And 5 cards is a rough spot to be. Although obviously the Hive Mind deck is very capable of show and tell you're dead.
For sure.
You know what I mean?
And Bryan is on the play this game, so that does hurt him a little bit instead of being on the draw. But again, yeah, show and tell is this Hive Mind show and tell deck is the kind of deck that can just go hey, double, Ancient Tomb, land, show and tell. Yeah. Do you have a counter spell or not?
Okay. So Jones is satisfied with his 5. I think.
Tough to say. All right. We're going to lead off with the Misty Rainforest.
Yep. So I think the only difference between these lists is from the other copy of this that we had in the feature match area earlier. And I believe Jones is playing 61 cards and a 4th Gataxian Probe.
Okay.
I think otherwise it's the same list.
Gotcha. Brian Elliott did not have Red Elemental Blast in his sideboard.
Oh, sure. I mean, the main deck. Sorry.
Yeah, sure.
Should have clarified.
We're going to see a Gataxian Probe here.
All right. I'm excited. So we have Gadok Teague. I mean, we need a second land, but we got some action. We got Geistesane Draft, Daze, Gadok Teague, Force of Will, Kasali Pride Page. And only a Misty Rainforest for mana.
And the thing about Brendan's deck is that he doesn't have a ton of Ponder or Gataxian Probe type effects. Like he has 4 Brainstorms in his deck, but you're not going to find Ponder. You're not going to find any of those cantripping effects to be able to smooth out his draws like you would in a Rug Delver type of deck.
So the 3 cards we just looked at were his hand appears to be Monolith 2 lands, and he's looking at Intuition, City of Traders, and another blue card. So he still needs. It's not enough to assemble from there. He's got a lot of mana. He's light on action, but
he's going to choose to keep with Ponder.
Intuition gives him a shuffle, so if there's 2 that he wants there, but not the 3rd one, he can set.
Misty Rainforest does not look like he drew the land. He's just going to play Flooded Strand and pass it back. Unstable Mutation, not a land. But we're going to see our Brainstorm now.
I think this is going to... Oh, he doesn't have a Pierce.
No,
so now he's going to be able to shuffle, play a land, and play a Monolith. And then Daze doesn't do very much at all for the rest of the game.
Correct.
So back they go.
And sacrificing the Flooded Strand to clear away the 2 cards for Brainstorm.
Judge is making him put the Brainstorm in the graveyard. Fetching a second basic island, still obviously, fearing the potential of Wasteland.
But we won't find any Wastelands in Brennan's deck, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
So he did not have a 3rd land. I guess he shuffled away 2 lands. And now he's going and getting, he's trying to resolve a Grim Monolith. He's tapping out for that Monolith. So this is going to be met by a Daze. The reason he wants to get Tropical Island here is that it allows him to Daze and cast a Noble Hierarch or Birds of Paradise if he draws one.
Gotcha.
All right, so again, Jones without another land.
There's also another Quasali Pride Mage and says go.
There's a Red Blast. So yeah, now he's looking at a hand of Force of Will, Intuition, Red Blast. All right, and he just drew his second land. I presume this will be going and getting a Tundra. I am wrong.
As was I.
Yeah, I don't know what the incentive is to get Savannah here.
Nor do I. That's very confusing to me. It just seems like Tundra is better in like almost every
You
situation.
have so many cheap blue cards to cast. Like you want islands. Hold up.
Yeah, hold on a second.
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Back up.
I'm fairly sure he just drew an extra card because he definitely drew that land for the turn.
Yeah.
The card he drew was Force of Will.
Right. I mean, we can resolve it over here.
Yeah, but
I'm not sure exactly what DCI policy is. Oh, yeah, it was obviously just a momentary lapse.
yes.
So I can see that we have a judge over here. I mean, we're going to have a slight delay here while we resolve this. Yeah, I understand these kind of situations. I mean, if they obviously had to be a stickler for things like drawing extra cards, but it would be unfortunate if that happened because I believe, I'm 100% sure that was just like
Purely accidental.
Yeah, just. So let's see. All right. I believe since the card entered his hand, it qualifies as drawing extra cards, and so Lutzi's going to receive a game loss.
Okay. Well, unfortunate for Brenden. Just a little bit too quick on the trigger there, but he will have the option to play or draw for this particular game 3. So just something he's going to need to kind of shrug off.
Yep. He's quickly going to his sideboard too to remove 2 cards to bring in 2 others. I'm curious to see what the swap is. I think he just cut. Did he just cut his Galactiques? That's what I think I saw.
I personally did not get a good look. Also,
It looked like a gold. It looked like a gold card.
Sure.
It wouldn't surprise me if he had a hand with Galactique and Force of Will, and it was just like, enough of this.
This doesn't work. Doesn't do what I want it to do.
And I think obviously we see a fair bit about the kind of stuff that we just saw. I think happens a little bit more often, like percentage-wise on camera, than it does in like random matches and tournaments. And I just think if you're not used to playing on camera, and you're running deep in a tournament, you're having a good tournament. There's a lot of prizes at stake, and you're not used to playing on camera. I think often you just kind of have the jitters. Like that's just a thing that happens.
Yeah, I mean it's like a very real thing, like just knowing that you're like on camera in front of a live audience. Live audience is at home critiquing your play, critiquing pretty much every action you make,
right.
and every decision and line of play you make. It can be a little bit more nerve-wracking than people give it credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's unfortunate, but I also think the rules are fairly clear in this instance. Like if the card enters your hand, it's a drawn card.
Yeah, no, I have absolutely no problem with the ruling. It's a pretty standard ruling in the situation. So both players are deciding if they're going to keep their opening 7.
All right. Nope. Jones
Bryan
going back to mulligan again.
He's taken many a trip to Paris.
Yep. Although, I mean, it's a test. I mean, it's possible he's just drawing up like random bad opening hands or whatever. But I do think that like part of playing Legacy has to be a willingness to mulligan aggressively. Certainly more so than in Standard or in Limited, certainly, because like the things the decks do are so powerful that people regularly die with a bunch of cards in their hand, a bunch of castable spells, which to me indicates that the format is more about like the stuff you're doing and not raw card count being the thing that matters.
Sure.
As opposed to Limited, where it's like, we all kind of have the same cards bumping into each other and trading, and like mulliganing is a disaster when that sort of stuff is going on, when like the last 5 mana 3/3 to stick can win the game. Legacy is like powerful things are going on, and it's important to have the right tools.
And all those things that are powerful are going on within like the first 3 turns of the game.
Right, yeah, exactly. If you die with 4 cards in your hand all the time, you're probably not mulliganing enough.
I would agree with that, yes.
So I think Jones is contemplating going to 5 again.
Yeah, tough match for him.
Yeah. And when you're yep, he's going to 5. A lot of discipline, and I mean it being on the draw is so much worse against like Days Pierce decks, you know. I mean, in theory, he can even do something on the play. He can even go like 2-mana land Monolith, and then those cards are irrelevant for the entire game.
Agreed.
Much harder to do that. I mean, you have the same likelihood of doing that on the draw, but the odds that it sticks is a lot lower.
So let's see if Bryan can find a reasonable 5-card hand this game. And of course, in the last game he was on the play. This particular game he's on the draw, so it may not hurt as bad. But
his 5 cards was functional last time. I mean,
absolutely.
Yeah, he was missing land drops, so I'm not sure what was happening with some of his like brainstorm ponder shuffles. But he definitely was like had powerful cards in his hand. He was ready to deploy. Bryan looking not too thrilled with his 5.
Attention players in $10 draft number 5 here.
Looks up at the camera, shakes his head.
No.
4 cards. Still, this is one of the decks in Legacy I feel is if any deck is going to mulligan to 4, this is one. I mean, obviously, when you're up against like Spell Pierce, Daze, Force of Will, mulliganing like this is a disaster.
Yeah.
Whereas against a deck like Maverick, maybe it doesn't even matter because like your powerful 4 cards can still get it done. But this is a deck with enough, power to it that a 4-card hand is definitely not a done deal. I mean,
Agreed.
It's a winnable game.
This is a deck that can mulligan relatively low and win. And Dredge is kind of the same thing, even though they're drastically different decks. It's another deck that can mulligan a lot.
Yeah, well, it doesn't play with a hand, so
yeah.
Dredge is sort of a different animal. But yes, that deck can also mulligan end. All right.
That's a shrug and a keep.
All right, and Noble Hierarch for the first time.
And we see at least a Grim Monolith.
Yeah, and a second
Bryan.
land. I mean,
okay.
he's got mana to play with,
Hierarch.
Dash. Has an unstable mutation in his hand that he elects not to cast, so I assume this means he has Pierce in his hand.
And a Brainstorm as well.
Yeah. I think that if I were to build this deck, I feel like I would want no more than 1 Savannah.
I would agree with that. For what this deck is trying to do functionally, like you can look at his hand right now, and there's just 3
blue.
Yeah, there are 4 blue cards in his hand.
They all cost 1. Yeah. So I assume we're going to be piercing this Monolith. Excellent choice. And that's the difference between being on the play and on the draw. On the play, assuming that Brenden had just cast his Monolith on a Hierarch on turn 1, that would have just resolved.
Yeah, and then the game is drastically different.
Yeah.
So we see a Brainstorm being cast here.
Is that
for
a Mind
Brenden.
Break trap in his hand?
There is a chance that it is.
I
mean, there are 4 in his sideboard.
This is not traditionally a good Mind Break trap matchup, but with your opponent on 4 cards and you heavy on mana, it's actually going to be good this game.
He's going to attack in for 2. Okay, he's going to do it that way.
Yeah.
He's going to sacrifice the Windswept Heath.
Does he have a Spectral Flight as his last card or something like that?
No, I didn't get a good look at his hand.
I mean, we're getting ready to ride.
Yeah, I think that's probably what it is. Ride him up, cowboy.
All right, so we have a
3, 4, 5. This is gonna be attack for 7.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yep. And now he actually has. Now he has a Lethal Clock plus 4 mana and Mind Break Trap left over. So no fuss, no bust. Using every part of the buffalo. All right. Have a Monolith.
And he's perfectly fine. Yeah, Monolith resolves.
Yeah, this is
card.
Bang.
And in for 6 this go around. And yep, that land will even make it easy. Not that it was going to be difficult in the first place, but
Yeah.
just make it easier to cast the Mindbreak Trap.
And also, if he's on, there's even like even if he has Hive Mind here, he can actually pay for Summoning Trap or
Pact Negation.
Yeah, Pact Negation.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, Summoning Pact or Pact Negation. So it's not even. He needs to have Red Pack specifically for this to even be lethal.
Yep. He's going to have one heck of a hand to be able to win this
And you
game.
can't show and tell Emrakul into play because Noble Hierarch is flying.
So is Emrakul. I promise.
Why does that guy fly? What's the point? Can't block
It's
him
a
anyway.
spaghetti monster.
Okay, this is a floating.
You can block it. I've blocked it with a Bird of Paradise. It wasn't like an
Yeah,
ideal
and wrote to a
It
winning
wasn't
game.
like an ideal situation, but it can be done.
Sure.
Emrakul will fly, my man.
I don't know. That doesn't even make sense. All right, and there's the handshake.
And still had this.
Yeah, it
Mindbreak
still
Trap.
had a hard counter also.
So Brenden Lutzi ends up winning 2-1 with blouses over Bryan Jones in his Hive Mind deck, taking him up over to 5-0 and in
Presumably 5-0. Yeah.